And we are live. Thank you to everyone who's watching on the Joyful Business Club today. It's always such a pleasure to be doing these sessions. And today I have a very special guest. Of course, as you know, all my guests are special, but we were having a chat before, and let me just say she's truly dynamic. If you're one of these people who worries as a small business owner that you're not good with tech, that you're not good enough with tech, that it's only something that the young people of this world, maybe your children, maybe your grandchildren are good at, let me just say that Tracy is going to convince you otherwise. So Tracy is recognised as a certified practicing marketer by the Australian Marketing Institute. She's a speaker, she's a small business digital coach, and she's author of the End of Technophobia, a practical guide to digitising your business. She has done many amazing things, and she's also a podcaster. She is on regular judging panels for various industry awards, including the Australian Marketing Awards and the Australian Podcasting Awards. So that's a pretty tall order. Tracy, how did you get into all this technical stuff? Like, was it hard as a woman getting into this, or it was just fairly easy?
I grew up in regional Australia, and the options when I left school were kind of banks or meatworks. Really, that was the area that I lived in, and neither of those appealed to me. So I found a job going in a company at the time called Strathfield Car Radios, and if you're from New South Wales, you'd probably remember them. And the year was 1990, and mobile phones had been out a couple of years. So I go back to the old handheld things that were more of a security device that you could smack someone over the head with.
They were big bricks, weren't they?
They were huge. Yeah. Yeah. So I've been around that long.
Wow. And at that time, I remember it was only the really, uber wealthy that could own them. And in fact, just to digress a bit, when I was first learning Mandarin Chinese, they had a nickname for mobile phones, which meant da ge da, which was basically a mafia kind of slang term for like older brother. And, at that time, it was only like the super wealthy mafiosa types, the triad types who could afford a mobile phone. It was seen as so exclusive. But now, I don't know where I would be without mine.
I think, if anything, we've become a little too dependent. If my phone actually rings now, I'm like, who's calling me? Just send me a text message, people. What's going on? So even my voicemail says, I don't listen to voicemail, so don't bother leaving me a message, to send me a text. So I think it's kind of funny how it's evolved, right? You'd leave the house or you'd leave your business not that long ago and no one knew where you were or could get in contact with you, and now we can track you within kind of meters.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes it can be a bit scary. I recently watched The Social Dilemma with my kids.
Oh, yeah, don't do that. That'll scare you for life.
Well, actually, we've been watching a movie, a comedy about two older people who interned at Google with two comedians. I can't remember, Vince, someone and someone else. So we sort of had we do what we do because we love Google one week, and then the next week Google is evil. So it was quite interesting to kind of contrast.
Balance, right? It's a nice balance.
Yeah. So on from mobile phones that look like giant bricks in the early 90s, what are some of the other sorts of projects you've worked on?
Yeah, so I've been really blessed to kind of be a part of most of the major milestones of small business technology since 1990. So I was part of the pilot team that tested SMS technology. So every time you send a text message, I got to kind of be part of that closed group that was testing it to see if it was going to do any good. And a really cool little side note on that, we actually tested it to be inclusive for the deaf community.
Wow.
So that was how SMS technology kind of got its leg up in Australia to begin with, was to help out the deaf community. And now, we send me milk. So that was fun. I launched the iPhone. So as part of a role I had at Telstra, I've done a bunch of mobile phone upgrades and network upgrades. So I went from the old analog to next G to 3G to 4G to 5G. So I've kind of been a part of a lot of them. I remember I wrote the learning and development manual for Telstra to teach people how to put a device in the hands of a client when, the phones started getting the little screens on them that you could watch videos or you could stream, you know, I think Optus had a streaming service on your mobile phone for a while. So I've kind of seen all of the iterations to where we are now, which has been, it's a lot of fun.
Wonderful. That is fascinating. Now, if you are watching, please stop and say hi. I always love to know who is out there. And if you have questions for Tracy, make sure you answer them. So you've seen a lot of things that are happening. Now, how excited are you for new technology? What is it that is exciting you right now to trial and to think about possibilities for?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because mainly, and you and I were chatting about this before we went live, mainly I work now with people that are over 40. So they're my age group. You know, we grew up without tech. So we didn't have computers in the house. We didn't have any of that kind of stuff. Technology's happened to us, and it can feel a little oppressive and overwhelming at sometimes. Like it's this other thing that we've got to learn. Oh, I have to be on Facebook. I have to know TikTok. I have to know. Whereas I kind of say that tech and technology should make your life easier. It shouldn't be another thing that you have to spend all this time on. So, you know, just like if you're an accountant or a Sparky or, you know, anything, you're always kind of watching out for what's happening in your own industry and you're always reading stuff and keeping up to date. I just kind of think like technology for me is that thing that you read about for maybe half an hour a week and you're doing your general kind of perusing of what's going on in the small business world. But I think where people kind of go, oh, what's the next big thing? Don't worry about it. Just do what you do it really well. And then if you reach a point where you're kind of hitting a wall and you're going, hey, it'd be really good if there was a thing that would do this. There probably is. And that's where you start to spend a little bit of time and investigate it. But if you get caught up in the bright, shiny object syndrome, you're never going to get your own work done. So, you know, that's why there's people like me that spend our lives getting caught up in the bright, shiny object syndrome. So we can tell you what to spend time on and what to avoid.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to acknowledge that Michael Hanrahan, who I know you also know, is online, and he said hi. So shiny object syndrome and, you know, thinking about all these technology, you know, as a small business owner, especially starting out, it is really tempting. You think you have to spend a lot of money on a lot of different apps and a lot of different things. And everyone does talk about, you know, automation and how powerful it is. But I agree with you. You could spend literally all your time automating all your processes so that they were all perfect, or you could be too scared to start until everything was totally automated.
And automation is a great example. I think, in my personal opinion, I've seen people go so far into the automation that they lose the personality, you know. So really now what we are seeing, and if you talk about, you know, what's coming, what's the next big thing, automation's going to stay, but it's getting that personalization back in. So it's really spending time to understand your clients, your community, knowing who they are, what they want, and, you know, what kind of makes them tick. So you can perhaps create lists or groups of people that you talk to that are smaller. So I'm not sending you, Serena, something that is completely irrelevant to you because I'm just sending out a big blast once a month going, hey, I've done this fabulous thing. I don't care. No one's got time for that. Tell me what I need to know. Tell me how this thing is going to make my life easier if I'm in the publishing world, or this thing's going to make my life easier if I'm in the coaching world. Like, just talk to me. And that's where you kind of need to get to now with your automations, or you're just going to lose your people. You're going to annoy them and they're going to disappear.
Yeah, it's something that I struggle with myself. Like, I've automated processes now, for instance, for someone to book in to be a Facebook Live guest or to be a podcast guest. But some people just get annoyed with it. They're like, well, I'm available to, you know, 12:30 Friday and that's it. And I'm like, well, you know, I've got a form, and it's handy for me if they fill out the form because, and I know you did, but, you know, everything is one place. But some people are like, well, I'll just send you emails. I don't have time. I'm not bothered, you know. And I've been a guest myself on podcasts where the amount of hoops I've had to go through before I'm even a guest, the amount of information I've had to fill out, and which they probably don't even need, it's just annoying for me.
Yeah, it's that happy medium, isn't it? That when you're the one creating the content, you're the podcaster, or in this instance, doing what you're doing, there are certain things that you need, and you need them in the format that you need them in because that's what works for you. I think what happens is often we reached out to the wrong people. They may not be exactly our target demographic, or they may not be. So I find whenever something like that just kind of isn't gelling, then that's time to sit back and go, are they actually the right people for me to be interviewing? Or am I the right guest for them? I was on a podcast the other week. Well, I was invited to be on a podcast the other week. And when I turned up for the interview, I said to the person, I'm not convinced that I'm actually the right person for your audience. So I'm really happy
Wow.
to have the chat. And you know what? I'm going to leave it with you. And if you don't feel like our conversation is going to hit the bullseye for your people, don't play it, because it's just going to end up alienating your audience. And he was like, wow, that's really secure of you to say. And I said, well, there's no point. Like, your audience is gold, right? Your clients are gold. Treat them like that. Don't get someone on that's not going to hit the mark, or, you've got to give them that return on attention. Why am I turning up? Why am I giving you 15 minutes, half an hour of my time?
Thank you for that. There's some really insights in that and things I can relate to as a podcaster. We will come back to technology, but since we both have a love of podcasting, I'd like to delve into this further. I find sometimes there's a lot of competition to get, the best guest, the really famous guest. And, like, obviously you want to do that. Like, and it's, I see podcasting partly is a way to make some amazing contacts. And you obviously do want industry leaders, thought leaders who are going to share their message. But, it can sometimes become like just having the famous people. Now, interestingly, on my podcast, which has been in existence for 18 months, this particular podcast, it's my second podcast, is consistently the highest ranking person on there. Is an anonymous blogger from Melbourne. She goes by the title Late Starter Fire. She's a woman in her late 40s, doesn't publish her name. She's not a superstar. She doesn't go on TV. She's not regularly on other podcasts. In fact, I think she's only ever been on my podcast, or at least I would know I was the first. And, she's like, really? When I show her the stats, and I'm like, no, you are number one. You're the top. And she doesn't believe me, to be honest.
Yeah. So I think that's a perfect example of you're finding people that meet your audience's needs. So obviously whatever it is that lady is presenting or talking about is bang in the wheelhouse of what your listeners want to hear. So you can't argue with the stats, right? So that tells me that sometimes chasing the industry expert is not actually what your people want to hear, because often the industry experts go off on a bunch of jargon that make me feel completely inadequate, because maybe I don't actually get what it is you're saying, or it's not completely relevant. And again, return on attention. Why am I giving you my ears for half an hour if it's not something that's adding value to me? I listen to all my podcasts on 1.5 or 2 speed as it is, because I listen to a lot of podcasts. So, if your show doesn't win me over in that first few minutes, I'm out, I'm done. So
yeah, it's an interesting one too. I mean, I love listening to podcasts. Hubby and I listen to them on long drives. This was, pre-COVID lockdown. Maybe we'll be doing some long drives again. And he does the editing for my podcast. He's my sound producer. So he notices all the little things, the hi-hats, the tick, tick, ticks, the the ahs. I listen to the interviewing techniques. So it's really fascinating. But I think this is one of the amazing things about podcasts. You're not limited to just listening to what's on the radio at a particular time. You can really choose your genre.
Yeah, absolutely. I call it communication, right? When we listen to something that is educational when we're commuting, because that's kind of what really drew me. Well, I was listening to podcasts when they were still RSS feeds, so I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to that. But once they kind of, I think Serial was the first one that kind of blew up, that made podcasts mainstream. It was the first one to hit a million downloads. It was the first podcast to have a skit from Saturday Night Live made about it. So it was kind of the first one that really elevated podcasts to mainstream. And I think it's really interesting that people now seek out niche things that they're interested in, whether it's educational or community-based or hobby or whatever it is. And that's their, I'm choosing to let you into my ears. You know what I mean? So it's a position of trust, I think, to hold a podcast with your audience.
I agree. I feel it's like a conversation. So it's different to say YouTube, which is blingy, and it's really when people are engaging with the sound and the listening. It's like a conversation.
Absolutely. And I see that's where platforms like Clubhouse now have really supplemented what we do as podcasters, because we're as a podcaster, often I see the conversation as almost one way. We're having that chat like you and I are now, but as a listener, I can nod along, but I can't butt in and kind of go, oh, but what about, or what do you think of da-da-da-da-da? I'm starting to see platforms like Clubhouse have this beautiful place where, you can have your podcast this week, comes out on a Tuesday. On Friday, you get me back on for a half an hour chat on Clubhouse. And the people that listen to the show can now come on and go, hey, so you said this thing about this, and what did you mean by that? Or what about this? And, you're creating that real dialogue. So I see how those platforms now are adding that extra layer and really starting to add some depth to the communities that we're creating.
Wow, exciting times. So I want to bring us back to talking about technology. And, there's often a perception that it's only the young people who can be good at technology or that they understand technology. I have two boys, one's 9, one's 12. My 12-year-old has started teaching. He's been teaching himself animation for about a year. He's got his own YouTube channel. He's a bit secretive about it, but he's doing some good work. When he lets us watch it, that is. And my 9-year-old, who's much more extroverted, is really into doing live streaming for his gaming program and also editing videos. But there's a perception that it's only the young people can do that. Is that true? Are older people locked out of technology?
No, absolutely not. I feel as though we need to cut people our age and older some slack, right? Because like I said earlier, we didn't grow up with this stuff like your kids did. We grew up with Nintendo, and, even before that, Atari was kind of the big thing when we kind of hit teenagers. Or remember, I've in my office at home, I've got the little flip Nintendo screens that were Greenhouse and Donkey Kong and stuff like that. That was kind of our introduction to technology. But I didn't have computers in the classroom when I went to school. We had a room, the computer room, that had maybe 4 computers. So there's that sense that, we missed that indoctrination that your kids have had. So they'll never know not having mobile phones. They'll never know not having a laptop. They'll never know not having internet, all those kinds of things. So in that regard, it's just a choice that we make. As in a small business owners, there's a lot of choices we're always making. How are we marketing? How are we going to show up in the world? How are we going to maintain that space for our clients? All that kind of stuff. Being tech savvy is just another choice that we need to make. When it comes to marketing, well, technology sits alongside of anything now. So if you want to be successful as a business owner, you need to speak the language. You don't necessarily need to do it all, though.
Right. So that's the tip. Well, one of the tips to overcoming overwhelm is that you don't have to do it all.
No, good grief. No one's got time to do it all. And it's like, again, as a small business owner, you have those core group of advisors around you, right? So you always have a really good accountant. You probably got a solicitor that helps you do your HR documents and all that kind of stuff. you need a good website person that you can lean on, and maybe you need someone that can teach you or help you understand, how do I use Facebook better, or what CRM should I have, customer relationship manager, or how should I be emailing people, or those types of things. It's just gathering another advisor in. My hubby, who is also a mad tech head, says all the time, I don't know how to play a violin, but I know when one's played well. And I think it's a really important thing to kind of think of, that I don't know how to build a website, but I know when one's built well, and I know now how to have a conversation with a website designer so I'm not getting ripped off. So it's just learning the language. It's being able to say to a web person or a marketing person or a automation person, I need it to do X, Y, and Z, and then what happens if.
That is a great example. And I want to acknowledge that we have Jackie Owen here watching, and she's a website developer. My new venture, the Joyful Fashionista, launched its marketplace, online marketplace today. It's a platform for buying and selling secondhand clothes. Oh. And in the first instance, with Jackie's support, she pointed me in the right direction. I built a prototype. Now, the prototype wasn't perfect, but I didn't think it was actually too bad for someone who had never, I'm a blogger, so, bloggers always, build basic WordPress websites, but this one had a lot more functionality. But it's now been professionally built by a team in the Philippines. It's glitchy today. I'm cranky. I've had several messages with the developing team. But the point is that because I had gone through that system of building the prototype, even though it wasn't very good, I have an idea. So we are speaking the same language about what's happening. And I'm actually, as part of this project, I'm working with a team at ANU, a team doing a Masters of Computer Science. So they're all programmers. So there's 6 of them in the team. They're based in China. It's the program called Tech Launcher, and they are using gamification to develop this cute game that's going to go with the system. Nice. And we have weekly meetings because I have no idea what coding language they've gone. They've gone from using something that was super smart to HTML5 to Vue. I don't even know how to write Vue, but that ability to have conversations with them every week about what they're doing and to communicate the vision. Like, I'm not scared to do that, even though I don't really understand the technical details of what they're doing, if that makes sense.
And that's all, I liken it to, you're used to listening to AM radio, but suddenly the dial's on FM.
Yeah.
You just need to, or you were saying you were learning or learnt Mandarin earlier. It's like having a conversation with me in Mandarin, and I have no idea what it is you're saying. So we just smile and nod at each other, so maybe I need to draw a picture and point at the picture and have you, we just need to figure out what's that common language. Because sadly, one of the biggest things I hear from the people I work with is, I've been ripped off by a web designer. I've been ripped off by a marketer. I tried Facebook ads. I threw money at them. They didn't work, and it's not the web designer's fault. It's not the client's fault. It's that neither of them are speaking a common language.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. And I think too that fear that, when people start saying, oh, I'm not very good with technology, I'm not very good with computers, that's an inhibitor. And I think, like while I've made a decision that I'm not going to run off and study a Masters of Computer Science because it's not the best use of my skill set or time, if I need to work out how to do something, there's usually a YouTube video. So in a work context, I was doing some part-time work earlier this year, and, we were establishing a Facebook page, and people are like, oh, I don't know how to use the Facebook business page because they've got a whole new business page suite. I forget the name of it now. Yeah. Like, I don't know how to use it either, right? I mean, I've used it before, but I'm not an expert. But, I watched a few YouTube channels. I tried a few things, but the next day I was an expert.
Yeah. It's, look, a lot of my people now, I started a small business tech club just for people who they've recognized that technology needs to be a part of their lives, but they don't know where to start. So, they're my people. And then, like you said, jump on YouTube, or, if you're talking about Facebook, they have an amazing free learning platform called Blueprint. So anytime you want to know anything about Facebook or Instagram, Google Facebook Blueprint, and they have hours of courses and videos and step-by-step guides and all that kind of stuff. Google has Google Garage, so if you want to know about running Google ads or doing SEO or any of that kind of Google Analytics, any of that kind of stuff, Google Garage, they build it, they maintain it. You're not going to get better advice than going and jumping on their platform. So it's just being brave enough to follow a recipe. Like the first time I learnt to cook a cake, I did actually just put the flour on the floor and dropped a couple of eggs because mum thought I was out with dad and dad thought I was in with mum. But, as we get older, typically, what do? We go hunt for a recipe. I need 2 cups of this and a cup of that and a bit of this and a bit of that. It's the same thing with technology. If you kind of go, oh, I need a Facebook business page, go find the recipe.
You work it out. I just want to acknowledge that Jackie Owen has some comments. She said, choose what you feed your mind. She's also said that is so important, speaking a common language. Yeah, I agree. And I know I've had some conversations with Jackie where I've been sort of hearing the vision and she's like, yeah, I don't really care about that so much. Like, what is it you actually want me to do? Yeah. I don't mean that in a bad way, Jackie. You know what I mean? Like we need to come back to the, what are the actual tasks we're doing and what is it going to look like? Jackie said, also understanding the scope of what the technical expert is bringing to the table. They often focus on a part of the project scope and aren't focused on the context or the whole picture.
That's a big one. I'm working with some people at the moment to get a website built and, they didn't have UX, they didn't have a customer design. So, and the web person wasn't doing that. But again, because there's an assumption that, oh, I'm getting the website built, that must mean they make it look pretty and they make it functional, and they maybe not. Maybe they just build it. Maybe they don't have the graphics, the customer design team behind it that's going to make it, fit what your clients are looking for. Again, it's knowing what to ask and working with people or being comfortable enough to then kind of say, what haven't I asked you that I need to know? And then Jackie would say, well, actually, we don't have a UX designer or we don't have a content creator. You're going to need to supply the content. Oh, okay. Instead of getting 6 weeks into the project and both being frustrated with each other because this isn't working or that didn't happen or whatever.
Yeah, well, just as we wrap up, and I'm sure you'll have some things to comment on this, as I am, going through my current project with this website design, and it's quite, marketplace websites are quite, big. It's not just a normal, just a blogging platform. It's not just a brochure style thing. It's a little bit more interaction. But, one of my kind of regrets is we went from talking about, oh, yeah, we can do this and this is how much we charge an hour, to suddenly having a different project. And we now have milestones and, what milestones will be reached before each payment. But I really wish we'd worked that out beforehand. And that we'd done that and that we'd done that under a contract that was really clear. It's nothing bad, like things are going according to schedule, but, I really feel on a few things, it sort of disrupted the trust a little bit because we weren't as clear at the front. Like it's one of those things that I didn't know what I didn't know.
And you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're my people. You're my people. Speak to me,
well,
sorry.
Well, I obviously hired them because I'm not a professional website developer myself. I don't know this level of coding. And I've made a decision that I'm going to focus on other things rather than learning that. But then the other kind of, regret was around project management. So they didn't have good project management tools. So then we'd had, over a period of months, some discussion about different tools. And we're now using a system. And, I sort of thought we were all on the same board. We'd had, many discussions. Do you like this system? Are you happy with it? Now they said, no, we don't like this system. We don't really use it. What we do use is Trello. And I'm like, well, you could have told me that 3 months ago. It would have been a lot easier. But it's okay. We know now. So now I'll just transfer the data over to Trello. The rest of his team can see it. And that way we can be a little bit more clearer. So when I notice little fixes and things, I can put it in there and they can know what they need to fix. Because at the moment, the communication's a bit like this.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, and that's, we don't have time to go into working with contractors that are based in different countries and things, but along with getting the common language, there's also cultural things to understand. If you're working with people from the Philippines, they don't want to offend, so they're often very amenable to things that are yes, that's fine, and it's only when you've been working with them for a period of time that they start actually going, yeah, we don't like that, tell me that up front. But that's not the culture. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to navigate as small business owners, whether it's tech or, working with virtual contractors, whatever it is. There's a lot of hats we're wearing and plates we're spinning.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have learned so much from this, and it's also been so encouraging. You were talking earlier about the age demographics of small business owners. So, maybe do you want to share this as a parting piece of wisdom?
Yeah, so this scared the living crap out of me when I first read it, to be honest. So there's 2.1 million small business owners, registered ABNs in Australia. 63% of us are aged over 45. So that's why I've chosen to work with my people, my age group. Plus they get my random 80s movie references when I slide in, when I put something in there about Ghostbusters or something. So I've got an elephant all the way through my book called Egon, because I named him after Egon from Ghostbusters. But, they're my people. The point is, the majority of us are aged over 40, 45. Tech happened to us. Just remember that. We didn't grow up with it. So it's something that we have to choose to adopt and adapt if we want to be, thriving and surviving in another 5 years. If we know one thing, COVID's disrupted a lot of stuff for us as business owners.
It has.
It's not going to go back to the way it was. It's up to us to find out how our clients and our community want to work with us and turn up in the way that works for them.
Well, thank you. That's fabulous. And I just want to add one final thing, since we're talking about 80s movie references, which is a couple of weeks ago, my family and I watched this movie about two, middle-aged men who became Google interns. So I was mentioning, I can't remember the actors, but they're both very famous and it's both very funny. But it
Robert
is really
Robert De Niro, and was it The Interns with...
Yeah, so Vince, someone, and it's very famous. They're very famous. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But everything they do, they're there, doing teamwork with these young people who are great at coding but have no soft skills or communication of everything else. And they actually excel because they've got this, teamwork kind of ethic, and they bring in all these 80s references like Flashdance references and things like that. So it's really funny. But, they have absolutely no idea. They keep talking about on the line rather than online. Right. Totally out of that. So just remember that if you think you're overwhelmed by technology, at least you're not going to be going around saying on the line.
That's exactly right. Or carrying around a box and calling it the internet. I always remember that from the IT.
Oh, yes.
IT
when
crowd.
Jen found the internet.
Yeah, the internet. Yeah.
That is one of my all-time favorite episodes of that as well.
Right.
You've got me laughing, I think, into the afternoon now. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. Make sure you leave your contact details in the thread, and more importantly, some details about your book so that people know where to buy it and to support what you do. Thank you all very much. And next week we have Misty Henkel talking about sales and her new book that she's in the process of writing as well.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
See ya.